Welcome back to The Healthy Bit. My name's Henry.
And this is where we talk practical and everyday ways to stack healthy habits that you can change your life and try to do things step by step, from cooking to also exercise and movement and mindset.
If you enjoy this show, please do share it with your friends, leave a comment. It really helps boost the show and it gets the listeners up. So yeah, please do that. And for today's healthy bit, we're going to be talking about my journey into fasting. This is something that I've started doing and a bit of an experiment on myself. So it'd be really good for me just to share what I've been doing and then hear your thoughts, Hayley, as to whether I'm going about it the right way and, what's actually happening.
Absolutely. Before we start, we should just say that anyone, if they're thinking about trying to do fasting or wondering what it is and just not sure if they should be doing it, just always consult with a medical professional if you're thinking about doing it, especially if you have any underlying conditions, and particularly if you're female or trying to become pregnant or any fertility issues. So Henry is healthy and able to go through the fasting process, and let's dive into how you've been finding it, Henry. Before we do that though, what caused you or made you think, right, this is what I want to do? Where did it start?
Well, good question. I guess I've always been a bit of a someone who's into kind of maybe fads, and I like trying stuff, a bit of an experimenter. So for me, fasting's something that the wife and I quite often listen to podcasts together. So we've been on a car journey, and it's some doctor from America talking about fasting and all these benefits and stuff. And I've kind of been tuning in a little bit, and I never really thought about it beyond like, oh, that sounds interesting. But I'm always hungry, so why on earth would I want to fast? And then probably about 6 months ago or so, decided I think I was just in a bit of a not in a bad space, but I was probably picked up some bad habits. I mean, I work in a bakery. There's temptations all over the shop, and I do like a glass of red wine and a beer, and maybe was having a bit too much. So I thought, well, actually, maybe I use a fast as a bit of a reset. As a kind of like, well, it's a hard stop, and then I can kind of assess it. I started, well, actually, the first fast I did was quite a long one. I did a 36-hour. So I think I'd had a bit too much crumble on a Sunday night, probably, had some friends over and had a bit of wine and was thinking, oh, this is not a great start to the week. And so I was like, well, actually, let's have a bit of a reset. So I'll do 24 hours. And actually, as I got into it, I was like, oh, I'll just keep going. So I ended up doing, I think I got to 2 days. Tuesday dinner that I then ate. So that was Sunday night from about 5 to Tuesday, so 48 hours. And actually it was fine. Like I probably the first day was the hardest, and then by the second day didn't really feel hungry. I was drinking a lot of water, still drinking a lot of coffee, but yeah, I felt okay. And then by the time I finished the fast, we had a nice dinner. I think we had like a ramen or something along those lines. And actually, it felt good. And the thing I found for it was that it was a good, it was a bit of a reset, and I was kind of like, right, I'm going to try and get back into a good swing. So stop eating, picking at bits of bread or donuts or whatever's lying around the bakery, try and rein in the alcohol, which, particularly if you're busy and you're working hard and it's just, there's a bottle of wine in the fridge, it's very tempting. So I found it was quite good as a bit of a reset. So that's what I did initially. And then it became a bit of a thing that I would start doing it every Monday. I would do like a 24-hour one. So I'd finish, dinner on Sunday. We'd have like a late lunch and then just not eat. And then I found missing breakfast and then missing lunch was actually quite easy because I could just power through them at work. I could just, not look at those things. Don't go to that part of the bakery where there's lots of samples, and then come home and then cook dinner and have dinner with the family. And that seemed kind of quite achievable for me. So I started doing that, and then I kind of got a bit more into it. I was like, oh, this is fun. So then I started skipping breakfast, and because I found that I could wake up, don't eat breakfast, just have a coffee, and then wait till lunchtime. So I guess that's like a little short fast. But then I had a podcast just before Christmas, and the lady was saying, I can't remember her name, I should remember it, but she was saying that it's better to fast at the end of the day rather than the beginning of the day because of something with your digestion. And actually, it's every mouthful, I think it was like after 5 is worth 10 in the morning. So she was like, if you can do that, try and actually have a good breakfast, have a good lunch, and then not eat dinner. That one I found a lot more challenging. I think possibly because it doesn't fit into family life so well. Like, we like to sit together as a family, and it's maybe a bit weird if it's like, why is dad not eating? Whereas,
Okay.
and I wouldn't want to kind of instill like weird eating habits into my teenage daughter and my young son. So actually, I found that one a bit more of a struggle. So I've only done that a couple of times, and yeah, but that was a bit
Yeah.
more difficult. But
Okay.
in terms
Well, I've got
I don't
yeah.
know. So that's kind of how I've been doing it, and I don't know. Like, I mean, I kind of feel fine. I know that something to do with that maybe it helps like cells regenerate. I think she was saying throwing out the trash, whatever that means. But I found it easier than I thought, and actually, it's helped me to kind of like kickstart or kind of like if I am in a make bad habits, actually a bit of a reset. But anyway, that's what I've
Yeah.
been doing.
Okay. So with my obviously physio hat on, I would it sounds as if you kind of got into it and thought, right, okay, I can do it, so I'm going to do it every Monday, you said. And then so now moving forward, are you planning to because there's so many different ways of fasting, isn't there? There's
Mm,
there can be like 24, 48-hour fast, there can be the 12-12 fast where you eat within 12 hours and then you don't eat anything for 12 hours,
yeah.
like intermittent fasting. So which one are you going to try? Are you going to try and stick to one particular version? Because otherwise, my concern for you, Henry, is that your body's not going to know what you're doing to it. So
No,
what's
fine.
your plan?
Well, I think the easiest one is missing breakfast. So that one so essentially waiting till 12 o'clock. So rather than having breakfast at 8 a.m. when I wake up, so I've had dinner. We try and eat around about 5:30. So we try and eat quite early anyway, 'cause it's nice to eat with the kids. I think that's a really good kind of social habit and a good one for families. Eating together, I think is really important, and that's why, I'll always, I think you do look at things from multiple different angles. And actually, for me, eating together as a family, super important. Breakfast is very hectic because it's like daughter's got to catch the bus, son's got to get to school, my wife's, running around. So actually, we don't sit down together for breakfast. So it's quite easy for me to miss breakfast and the kids not be like, oh, why are you not eating? So that's an easy one to miss. And then I'm at my desk, I've got email, spreadsheets, customer calls, whatever it is. So powering through to lunchtime is quite easy. Like it's not that much of a chore. And then I could just have a good lunch and then have dinner. So for me, that would be, yeah, like I guess like an 18-hour fast. And actually, the thing I learned was breakfast. I'd never really thought about this, but it's break fast. You're like, oh, so I now have I break
Yes,
my fast at lunchtime. I felt quite smug when someone told me that. That seemed like a good little bit of
absolutely.
trivia. So that's probably the one that I can do the most consistently. But then I also do quite like breakfast. I quite like a bowl of yogurt in the morning, or an egg, or porridge, or whatever it is. So I don't know. I mean, yeah. What would you recommend? I mean, is it good to do it as a kind of uh to be very prescriptive and be like, well, this is the way I'm always doing it, or is it good to kind of throw in different things and shake it up a little bit?
Yeah, so I would say your body really likes consistency. So
Okay.
whatever plan you kind of do, and that's the hardest bit in terms of people trying to keep to like something consistent and actually doing it well. That will achieve better results for your body rather than sort of skipping around from one, like say, one fad to another or trying to do something randomly. And I think you have to consider sometimes when you look at some of the research behind fasting, a lot of it's been done in animal studies. And so
Okay.
you have to kind of question, okay, that there's some fairly good, well, quite good research probably in animal studies, how good is it in humans? And there are these different types of fasting. And I think if you're overweight or you're an animal, then I think fasting's probably quite good because obviously it
Okay.
works for weight loss and they think there's this metabolic health benefit to it. I think if you're as a human, and I think the fact that we need nutrition and vitamins and everything in, I think there's more evidence probably or strongly suggesting that the intermittent fasting is a better, more sustainable way to do it, especially if you're healthy and you're able to do that, but also for the benefits if you are overweight. So, like you say, having your meal quite early in the evening and trying to eat your food within like an 8-hour window within the day,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the time you're really not snacking, having things at night time. And it doesn't really matter how that time scale works, in the sense that if you're somebody who likes to eat, it's not great for your metabolic and your gut health to kind of eat late and then go to bed. Like, you should give your stomach and
Mm,
your digestive system a rest before bed.
totally.
That has benefits in itself. So, but if someone says like, well, I do eat at 7 o'clock, then you want to try and get your fasting hours overnight time and maybe delay when you have your breakfast. But if you can, the benefits are usually sort of coming in when you can eat earlier in the
Yes.
evening and then have your breakfast as sort of at that point.
That eating late, I really feel that now, because what kickstarted my last kind of big fast. So I did a 48-hour one just before Christmas. I went and stayed with my little brother in, see, I think he lives in Stoke Newington up in London, and there's loads of fantastic Turkish restaurants. They're like Turkish barbecue. I can't remember the name, but they've got these like open charcoal grills, and they got all these wonderful meats. It smells so good, and there's smoke billowing out. And we'd been to the pub and probably had a couple of pints of Guinness because it was, Christmas time up seeing my brother. And anyway, we went to this restaurant and it was busy. And so we had to wait probably an hour for a table. So we didn't end up eating until maybe 9 o'clock. And then this enormous pile of meat, loads of rice, loads of salad, loads of grilled flatbreads. It was all very indulgent and delicious. And so all of this kind of like smoky, fatty, but then a lot of carbs as well, because there was a lot of flatbreads. And and so we ate too much. The portions were too big, and then went home. So we were probably still eating at like 10:30, and then went home and kind of a little bit tipsy, but not by no means drunk. And then went to sleep. And I had like the cramps in my stomach overnight were just horrendous. And it was a real kind of like you know eating late for me is just killer. Like I just can't do it anymore. Like I used to, probably 5 years ago, that would have been no problem. But I'm obviously getting old, and I think also I'm just so used to eating dinner at like 5 o'clock. So
Yeah.
so I do, yeah, that kind of eating late, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
dangerous one.
And I think the reason why fasting works quite well for a lot of people, especially I think if their main driver is weight loss, is the fact it is a form of just calorie restriction. I think
Yes,
it's an easier way to do calorie restriction than probably most other diets, because you're not supposed to eat in it. If you can't put it in your mouth,
yes,
you're not going to be digesting it. And so it is quite a good strategy for if you are sort of overweight. But for someone like yourself, Henry, who's probably a healthy weight, you're a healthy individual generally, and those kind of smaller stackable healthy bit habits are something that you need to think about longer term, because the deficiencies, I know when we work with nutritionists, we're always worried about what you're missing out on if you're do for a full day, especially if you're active, and if you're athletic and you want to be doing exercise, then fasting really isn't a good choice for somebody, really, because they're
okay,
going to cause an issue for their musculoskeletal system, and they're going to be at a calorie deficit, and that's not good. And actually then you sort of start kind of causing a bit of a stress, and then the cortisol levels on your body could increase, and it's all multiple kind of impact on the system. So it is just trying to think kind of carefully about, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I'm going to get from it? Is it, can you keep it up? Is it something that you
yes,
want to keep up? Whereas the food eating in a smaller window, I think, is so technically I've been doing that probably all my life, because I tend to always eat breakfast quite early, and then we'll always have tea. We've always had like the dinner tea, whatever you call it, depending on where you live in the country. We'll always have eaten our last meal of the day by 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then I don't ever have supper. So it's
mm,
not like I have anything extra. Like, it's tempting.
yes,
Sometimes you say, aren't you doing
yes,
something? You think, oh, I could just eat something, but I try not
yeah,
to, because that importance of
yes,
giving your digestive system a rest.
a rest, yeah,
It is interesting because and especially like we kind of think mentioned about differences perhaps in females and males, you don't really want to be, if you're a female, there is a bit of a more of a stress on the system, and the physiological changes and the differences between men and women are quite vast. So in
okay,
ladies, it can even slow down their metabolic rate, because
okay,
but the body's like thinking, right, well, we better conserve our energy, because the human body is designed for reproduction. So it changes in the sense that if we're thinking about fertility and thinking about trying to get pregnant or anything else because we're born that way and that's evolution, then that can be significant in the sense that it can impact on the metabolic system, not always in a great way. So there are some other advantages for certain conditions. If you've got like polycystic ovaries, it's supposed to be quite good with the reducing the insulin sensitivity, which basically means your
Okay.
body's reaction to glucose and things like that. But it's quite a complicated system. And for me personally, I'd like to see more evidence from human studies proving that it is indeed
Yes.
as good as it says. I mean, there are a couple, but then you have to question how good that evidence actually is. So even if there
Yes.
is a research
Yes.
study saying it's good in humans, you have to criticize the methodology of it and say, okay, well, how strong is that evidence really? Because if you're older, like if you're like a geriatric person or somebody who's in the older years, it's probably not a good idea to fast
Mm.
because we're always telling older people to try and keep their energy
Keep
levels
it
up
up.
to
Yeah.
try and keep them active and to keep them a bit more bulky if they fall over to reduce the risk of falls and fractures.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual, doesn't it? And why you're doing it and what you're going to do moving forward. So do you think you'll
Yeah.
carry on with the kind of intermittent fasting is kind of what you've described, isn't it, Henry?
Well, I think you nailed it when you said that for your point of view that you've pretty much always done it. And I think for me, like my discipline is I'm always hungry. So like, if I'm walking past, and there's the peanut butter jar, it's so tempting just to open it up and have a spoon. And or there's a little bit of chocolate or a bit of fruit, or I'll have an apple before bed. Like my default is just to keep eating because I like food and I like eating. So I think for me, being a bit intentional of like, oh no, I'm doing a fast. I've had my dinner. I've had a spoonful of yogurt afterwards. You know, um, I'm now not going to eat um, uh, till lunchtime. It's easy then to just be like, no, I'm not doing that, and then I'm not tempted. And so I think for me, obviously there is the kind of the health benefit of, obviously, whether it's you lose a little bit of weight or you feel a little bit, you sleep better, or I don't feel quite so heavy or lethargic. But yeah, I think for me, it's more actually the kind of the routine and being intentional about something means that I'm not tempted to just have another one. And I think, yeah, for me, it seems to work. And actually, I don't know if you can tell, I have lost a little bit of weight, and particularly over Christmas, like it was easier to navigate because uh, you know, I was probably a little bit pious occasionally, and maybe some of my family members were like, "Oh, stop being so, virtuous and turning down that second bowl of trifle, whatever." But like, kind of it gave me a bit of a strategy to kind of not overindulge too much at Christmas, which normally around about this time of year people are feeling pretty. Well, I know in the past that I feel like my kidneys are about to fall out, and I've put on a lot of weight and feeling fairly miserable about myself, and so from that point of view, it's been quite positive. So I think that kind of intermittent one and missing breakfast feels to me sustainable. The one thing I would say is when I do finish, what I try and do is have for lunch, have like a really good lunch. So I'm at work, so quite often we have a microwave. So I quite often make scrambled eggs, maybe have an avocado, a little bit of watercress. I quite like tin mackerel I've got into. And so that's quite good. So I do a little squeeze of lemon on it, and the tins are great because I can buy 10 and just keep them at my desk. So, it's kind of so I try and have quite a kind of a protein heavy diet when I break that fast, but with some good fats and some, plenty of greens. And that seems to sustain me, and it's kind of, it doesn't, whereas what I don't do is have three pieces of toast and a cake. I'm trying to
Yeah.
and I don't know. So that seems to be working. But when you're breaking a fast, is there certain types of food usually, or is always having a kind of a protein kind of
Yeah, making sure that one, yeah, you have enough protein, but I think people get a little bit obsessed about just making it all about protein. Like protein kind of
okay?
steals the show at the moment, and it does come back down to it doesn't have to be really complicated or a
No,
fad of one. It's like our body needs so many different minerals and so many vitamins and so many different food groups. Why do we focus on one? Like it needs to be balanced. So you mentioned a really great balanced kind of lunch there. And sort of, as long as you're sort of feeling like you're satisfied and you've eaten enough food, in the sense that you've got your protein and you've got your dairy and you've got your vitamins and you've got your minerals and you've got your watercress and all these different
Yeah,
nutrition coming into it, then that's great. And I think the fasting can change people's habits to make better choices. And it sounds as if you've made better choices as a result of the fasting because you're being more considerate about what you're putting in. And I think if you
totally.
can keep that up, then whether you call it fasting or not, Henry, it's still a better lifestyle for you, and you're going to feel better for it. You're going to feel healthier. Your body's going to thank you for that because it's going to have a better impact on, like you say, you're going to feel better. You said you've lost a bit of weight. It's going
Yeah.
to be better for your, hormones and your testosterone levels. It's going to be better for your muscles and reducing any kind of visceral fat around the organs. And if you're active and you're not snacking and you're not filling yourself up with sugary sort of anything to spike your blood sugars through the day, then you're going to keep more of a consistent energy level. And that's what we should all really aim for, is eating so that we don't have these crashes in our kind of energy levels and our sugar
Yes.
levels, and keeping consistent. So yeah, it sounds like it's been a positive change for you, Henry.
Yeah, so far.
um yeah, exactly.
But
And yeah, it can be really good because it can actually have an impact on your kind of hormonal health as a male. I think it's more forgiving, I think, the impact of fasting on a male. And it does have that insulin impact so that it's less sensitive. So your response to sugar, if you do eat it, is better. So it doesn't kind of get all out of whack. And so yeah, so I think for men it's not a bad idea, but I think I'm still on the fence about the long prolonged fasting, especially if you're active and you're running your bakery, and you don't want to be deficient and then lose nutrition, because
no.
it's the impact in decades to come that you'll be like,
Yes.
oh, why did I do that? Because I've then you don't sarcopenia, which is muscle wastage,
No.
because you've not had
I don't want
enough
that.
calories and protein.
Nice. Well, if this will, feels to me like fasting is something that you kind of seeing on social media, hearing about it. People are talking about it, and this is my kind of little foray into it. But feels like a big subject, and we could talk about some other things, on another episode. And also, I can give an update to see whether I'm still doing it, or what else I've learned from it from a kind of personal experience.
Absolutely. We'll check in with you next time as well, Henry, and see how you're getting on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hayley, and thanks for listening, and remember to share it with your friends, and leave us a comment, and hope you enjoyed this episode of The Healthy Bit.
See you next time, everyone.